First thing I'd want to say is how profoundly sorry we are. The shame is ours.
This is the moment the highest authority in the Church of England offered a landmark apology for a scandal we have spent years uncovering.
I can't hardly believe it.
More people should know about it.
Unmarried mothers forced to have their babies adopted by the Church and State for decades.
The church were very guilty. They knew what was going on.
But those who've suffered lifelong trauma say the Church still has questions to answer.
When people say, oh, you should move on, what from? It's my life.
In the late 1960s, Felicity Davis from the Wirral was 15 when her baby was taken for adoption. She still recalls the cruel words from the social worker.
Well, that's all done. You'll never see her again. And I think you've been punished enough. And I felt like somebody had punched me in the stomach.
How do you look back at the way you and other women were treated?
Angry because of what it did to me. I felt like there was this great hole inside me, and it did hurt.
Felicity was sent away to Chaddersloe, an institution for unmarried mothers in Shrewsbury run by the Church of England. It was one of more than 200 homes run by the Church in the decades after World War II. Places of secrecy where unmarried mothers were punished and babies forcibly adopted.
A lot of women like me, they've realised that their lives had been, in some cases, really wrecked because of it, and that should not go unacknowledged.
Now, finally, the Church is confronting its dark past. The Archbishop of Canterbury acknowledged for the first time the Church's central role in this scandal, offering an official apology.
The first thing I'd want to say is how profoundly sorry we are for those who have been affected by the practices at homes that are affiliated to the Church of England, for the pain, the trauma and the stigma that they experienced and still carried today. They have nothing to be ashamed of. The shame is ours.
Some of those affected have already died. It's too late for them. Many are asking what on earth has taken so long for the Church to accept its role in this.
It is a deep regret that this apology comes too late for some people. But we wanted to listen to those who were impacted by the historic practices in care homes. And we wanted also to understand our responsibility and our role.
Are you ashamed of what happened in the Church's name?
In speaking and listening to those that were affected in the care homes, we heard accounts of the way in which women were separated from their babies with little or no consent. We heard the way in which women and children were made to do menial and manual tasks.
But the reality was much worse than that. Our long-running ITV News investigation found evidence of cruelty and neglect. We discovered mass baby graves connected to at least 5 church-run homes, dozens of unmarked graves in Cumbria, Northampton, Aylesbury, Brentwood and Winchester.
We're meeting here.
Last year there was a memorial, the first of its kind, to those infants who died.
It became a place of pain and rejection and heartache, which has reverberated through to today.
And family members found out the truth for the first time.
I can't hardly believe it, and if there's more babies in here.
More people should know about it.
Bob from Barrow learnt his baby sister Faith was in a mass grave, buried in secret.
If it hadn't been for you, we wouldn't have known all this. We wouldn't have known where Faith was. All these other poor little babies, we wouldn't have known about them either. You know, I keep thinking about this little girl, and I don't even think my mother-in-law saw her.
We heard allegations of neglect at St Monica's home in Kendal. Sick or disabled children left to die because they were deemed unadoptable.
I now feel he didn't die in vain, because the public now know that he was a human being. It was so wrong to just put them in a hole and cover them up.
It is profoundly shocking that this occurred in a Church of England home.
Does the church accept it bears a share of responsibility for their deaths and what happened?
The Church of England was part of a wider system that involved healthcare professionals as well. But the Church of England not only was part of a system, shaped the system. So we are very clear that we have a responsibility around how those that were affected by the historic practices were accepted. And the fact that people, mothers were not allowed access to healthcare is completely unacceptable.
But your own archives show that the church was aware that there were substandard conditions in the home, there was poor care for the women, there were staffing issues, and yet this persisted for decades. Nothing was done, and we know that there was a high infant mortality rate in many of those homes. So I'll ask again, do you accept that you bear some responsibility for that?
The Church of England does bear responsibility for the way in which women and children did not receive the care and support that they should have done. And today I want to apologise for that.
Another thing that I picked up from the report, it describes the Church of England's lack of institutional memory for something it was deeply involved with. What does that mean? Does that mean that the church has just forgotten this dark chapter in its history?
Certainly we have not forgotten what we are responsible for, and today's apology is part of us saying that we know what we were responsible for and we apologise for that.
We've also heard shocking accounts of racism and prejudice, mixed heritage babies treated abhorrently.
When I'm 1 year old, the matron says, "Philip is such a poor specimen of humanity," and there are doubts about my intelligence. The reason I wasn't adopted or fostered was because I was not white.
Phil Frampton was born in a church-affiliated mother and baby home in Cornwall in the 1950s. He later grew up in children's homes across England.
This is not like it was like 200 years ago. This is recent. This is part in people's memory. It's in my living memory. And when people say, "Oh, you should move on," why? What from? For the Church of England apology, for me, this is for all the women. This is for all the survivors. And this is about freeing society up, freeing ordinary people from the repression and guilt and shame they've had.
That guilt and shame has been carried by survivors across England for decades. Back on the Wirral, what happened to Felicity has cast a long shadow. But against the odds, she went on to marry the baby's father, Tony, who was also 15 at the time. But that early trauma has shaped their lives.
I have a lot of guilt. I don't really totally understand it, but I do. And because of that, it's tough. It is tough. I felt helpless, really, and I felt responsible, of course, and I did feel a lot of guilt.
He believes his daughter was seen as a commodity.
The church were very guilty. They knew what was going on, but they chose to handle it in that way because that was the easiest way, because it just made it easy for them to say, right, that's it, it's happened, it's done, turn the page. So wrong.
It took 3 decades, but their lost daughter Claire tracked down her parents and the family is now reunited. But she wants accountability for what happened.
So I feel cheated, and I think in a lot of ways I didn't know who I was because I had no idea where I came from or who my parents were. And it was I had quite unsettled childhood because we were constantly reminded we were adopted and these aren't your real parents and they did you a favour keeping you out of children's home. And they were told to speak to us like that, and that was very, very poor.
The forced adoption scandal has affected generations of families. For decades, they've been calling for recognition and redress.
Say sorry, Sama.
Today's church apology will only increase the pressure on the government to do the same and accept it too is responsible for these cruel practices.
Say sorry, Sama.
Lambeth Palace said its words of apology are just the start. It will also provide more support for survivors, and some will be able to apply for a redress scheme. For what remains one of the most shameful periods in our nation's history. Sarah Corker, ITV News.